Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring KeRazaH in our bottom left corner playing our blue Zerg, and in the top right we have Ganjsmoker, our red Zerg. It is a Zerg versus Zerg. We're on Cloud Kingdom, and this is going to be exciting because Ganjsmoker is in Masters, KeRazaH is in High Diamond, so a comparable skill level to say the least. And yeah, it's going to be a fun game. ZVZ is very fun, especially to watch. Not really to cast because there's a lot of screaming and just debauchery and whatnot. A lot of back and forth, a lot of early aggression. Late game is usually pretty stagnant in comparison with the fast back and forth, but that's just because you just got out of like an incredible melee fest. And compared to late game TVT or PvP, it's very dynamic, it's very fun to watch. But just after that super early aggression, it can seem kind of slow. Early game is always kind of slow, and by early game I mean like the first 2 minutes or so. Unless there's a super early rush, both players are macroing pretty hard. They've passed that 6 supply mark, the 10 supply mark, whenever we'd expect to see that cheese. Both of them are hitting the 12 harvester count, probably going to go all the way up to 15 before they throw down a pool, which is pretty much standard, especially on a map of this size, but you never know, maybe more shenanigans are underway. We see a hatchery drop down first, go for that early land grab, or maybe a proxy hatch if you're just feeling absolutely crazy. KeRazaH's not, though. Neither is Ganji. They're both grabbing that 15 pool, which is, like I said, totally standard. Sometimes you'll see a guy throw down the hatch first and then follow it immediately by a pool. And so they both finish pretty much on top of each other, and you can get some really nice synced up queens being built. It's a very neat play, very well put together, and when it's deployed properly can sync up the larva injects, which just saves so much time and energy and whatnot. But it's one of those things you sacrifice a little to gain a lot. Ganji is throwing down a hatchery, sacrificing the 300 minerals for both of them to grab up that expansion so that they can transition more into a economic, safe style, not going for a cheese, not going for super early aggression where you bet everything on just a handful of units. This is more of a safe play, more to just to see out that late game. Both players are pretty confident in their abilities that they can see this to the end. Interesting note, KeRazaH, nothing on gas just yet. Ganji is throwing down the extractor. Will saturate it immediately with 3 harvesters so they can get up the much needed 100 gas for that metabolic boost, and then maybe just leave one of his drones in that extractor so that he can get up the larva later on. And by larva I mean layer upgrade. It takes 100 gas, and if you just leave one drone in it, by the time that one drone harvests the 100 gas, you can actually have up plenty of units. Not much of a sacrifice as way as minerals go, and you really don't feel it in a loss of attacking units. Speaking of attacking units, those first 2 Zerglings are moving out. KeRazaH just a little bit behind the gas timing for Ganjsmoker, but we'll probably see him being up by 1 or 2 drones, maybe 1 or 2 Zerglings here and there. Not the biggest difference in the world. Both of the expansions are done, beginning to get saturated. The first round of Zerglings from KeRazaH is going to make it up, no problem. See that first extractor is mining, not a second extractor. Not going to see some early tech out of him like a early lair or maybe even rush to aspire. That 100 gas has been spent, though, for the speed, which is going to be pretty important because Cloud Kingdom is one of those maps that you can get a surround on the low ground if you need to, and then you can also deny a lot of scouting if you have speed and your opponent does not. That single Zergling escaping with his life and 11 hit points. And on the back of that, Ganji throws down a spine just to make sure that he's prepared to deal with any aggression. Also, a Baneling Nest. The position of the Baneling Nest tells me it's more for defense than offense. He's not going to be going for a Baneling bust. This is just to get up a handful of Banelings back at home to defend that ramp, which can be a really powerful choke. Low Overlord poking in to scout the gas timing. No gas, double gas down at the expansion just yet. Haven't even grabbed the second gas for KeRazaH back at home, but he's got 3 harvesters on the extractor powering for that gas. Has got enough for a lair. Both players do, actually. I wonder what Ganjsmoker is going to spend all this gas on. It's probably going to be the Banelings, not going to lie. But the Baneling positioning there tells me it's not really going to be for an all-in bust. It's more just for a defensive positioning. It also kind of adds in with the choke, making it so that any Zerglings have to take a bit more of a backwards path to the queen, really. Usually you see that baneling nest a little bit lower so it protects the drones, but to each his own. Double gas once the Overlord was chased away, but it was just chased onto the high ground. I don't think... Yeah, he has a vision of that gas, so it's interesting to see the Overlord not being poked back like that. 6 Zerglings are going to make it in. The Queen's being just a little bit off the ramp, trying to grab that Larva Ajax. He comes up, sees the 4th extractor being taken, as well as the lair being morphed. He knows there's going to be some sort of early tech sooner or later. Back at home, Ganjsmoker is now grabbing his 3rd gas, not the 4th just yet, but throwing down double Evo chambers. Maybe if it's going to be a Spire out of KeRazaH, Ganji's going to be hopeful, and he's going to be happy that he grabbed those Evo chambers so he can get some Spore Crawlers down, I'll tell you that right now. But it looks like he's going to go for a Roach play. He's got some Roaches coming out. Maybe get some double upgrades out of that. And does he have a lair yet? He does. So the upgrades for the Roaches are going to be extreme in one sense and another. He's got plenty of gas. All 4 of his geysers has now been taken, and we can see a Spire is on the way for KeRazaH. Where is it? Is he hiding it back at his home base? Yes, he is, just right behind the mineral line. Quite a lot of gas. We knew that this was coming. It could have been this, it could have been the Infestors, but Mutalisks are so very classic and powerful in this matchup. We don't see any Spores. We do see some Overlords positioned. It looks like KeRazaH has his Overlord on follow from Ganji, so if he decides to suicide it in, maybe the Queen will be fast enough to pick it off. But KeRazaH, again, with some nice map control awareness. He's got his Overlords positioned around, actually morphing one to an Overseer, probably planning on suiciding it in there just to see exactly what sort of shenanigans Ganji is getting up to behind enemy lines. But KeRazaH's got a lockdown on that 3rd base. He knows that Ganji's not going to expand super hard, but he's got to be curious about what's going on behind that. Double Evo chambers for Ganji have now gone into full swing with the +1 for range. A handful of Roaches are coming out just now, but they're probably going to be waiting for that glial reconstitution. Pathogen glands also coming out, so the Infestor Pit is on the ground. Ganji is going to suicide in his Overlord. Will it catch that Spore just down on the bottom left corner? Not really. Ganjsmoker is building an extractor, which was going to get picked off by the Zergling, but that really was just to keep his drone alive for a couple more seconds. The Overlord does escape with his life, but not before it did not scout the Mutalisks or the Spire, and the 10 Mutalisks that are coming out right now will really help KeRazaH get farther and farther in the lead, because he's going to be able to just decimate these drones without a handful of Queens to hold him back. There's no Spores on the field. There's no... Oh, he does have a couple of Mutalisks, Infestors coming out. Ganjsmoker could score some major hits with some fungal growths on those Mutalisks, and as they make their way across the map, it looks like they're going to fly right by one of the Overlords, already exposing themselves. They decided to take it out, which is probably a good play. He really wanted to keep these secret, but with the Overlord spread from Ganjsmoker, it's probably unlikely that they were going to make their way to a drone line before they actually got scouted. Still no Spores coming out of Ganjsmoker just yet. It looks like he is going to be relying almost exclusively on those Infestors, but with so many Mutalisks coming out on the field, how good do those fungal growths have to be? Only 2 Infestors are out right now, and both of them were built after the Pathogen Gland, so they should have enough energy. 21 and 22, so yeah, he definitely got one fungal growth, but I think he whiffed the second one. Or he expended it on some infested Terrans somewhere else. Maybe there was a rush in with a couple of the Zerglings. We can see that the Zerglings are poking off to the left side, but with such an intimidating force of Roaches, it's unlikely that Ganjsmoker is going to have to worry about all those Zerglings. Mutalisks coming back to do a swing around into the drone line. At the same time, the Roaches and the Banelings finally connect with KeRazaH's main force. The Queen has gone down from the combined might of the Mutalisks, and unfortunately this Infestor spends 25 energy each for those infested Terrans, which I think is enough for a fungal growth. Correct me. I'm terrible at math. Rule number 1, never do math. While the Mutalisks are having their way with Ganjsmoker's base, it looks like he's decided to move out and actually attack back at home. The Ganjsmoker's main force is actually engaging at the 3rd, which is not saturated at all, but it'd be nice to be able to deny this entire thing. At the same time, the Mutalisks are just absolutely decimating the supply cap. Look at that, 82 over 50. A fresh round of Overlords do pop out, though. Again, the Roaches, with their +1/+1, are having no problem dealing with just the Zerglings on the ground. This is really the weakness that Mutalisks kind of leave you with is, they don't do a lot of DPS and they don't do a lot of damage, especially to roaches. And that can leave you very vulnerable to this sort of counterattack. And in the days is that roaches are very resilient and they can do quite a lot of damage even if they're taking 100% shots from your Mutalisks. However, KeRazaH's got an intimidating air army, 21 Mutas. That's going to be able to one-shot any queen. I think that's enough to one-shot a Spore Crawler. Maybe two-shot, but yeah, probably two-shot. I might be over-exaggerating those Mutalisks just a little bit. But with 5 spores on the way back at home, Ganjsmoker has sacrificed his roaches to buy him enough time to get up the defenses at home. Unfortunately, Zerglings are a little bit faster than that, and Spore Crawlers are not very good against Zerglings. So this third is going to go down. The transfusion, not enough time to buy time for the Banelings to arrive, but Hatchery goes down. Zerglings also go down from the combined hit from the Banelings, but here comes the flight of the Concords. All those Mutalisks are going to be coming in. Some Hydras are out on the field, but not nearly enough to deal with such a large swell of units. Another 4 Mutalisks are coming out with a Groove Spine for Ganjsmoker. All those upgrades that he spent on the Roaches are going to benefit those Hydralisks, but really something that you need to deal with this is he's already got tech for it. He's those Infestors, but he also needs supply, and he was supply capped like, whoa, a very short time ago. A nice fungal growth right there, bringing all of these units down to the red. Several of them do pop. Another fungal growth just like that is exactly what he needs. Another Infestor is on the way, but it's going to be quite a while before the Infestor that actually spent its energy on that fungal growth has enough to take another swing at these Mutalisks. Oh man, there's 2 shots from those spores is enough to bring down those Mutalisks. It's pretty close. It's really, really close. Ganjsmoker is definitely behind by no stretch of the imagination. The third, while it did go down from the Roach attack, is being rebuilt by KeRazaH, and there's not much up here. Ganjsmoker does have the money, and he's got the drone in position. He's just waiting for these larvae to pop, I think, before he can throw down that hatchery. There is no saturation at this third just yet, but I expect we're going to see a little bit of the extra money that KeRazaH has just lying around to be spent on a couple of more drones just to get a little bit farther ahead in the economy. As this game progresses, we're going to find these Mutalisks to be increasingly obsolete, even though their numbers are still very intimidating and they can absolutely ravage a drone line. With the numbers of Infestors out on the field right now, and probably the number of Hydralisks going to begin to rise shortly, I don't think that they're going to be very effective later on. So KeRazaH is going to be thinking about transitioning. It looks like he's getting a Roach Warren and an Infestor pit out himself, as well as some Glial Reconstitution plus a Roach Warren. Does he have 2 Roach Warrens? Am I crazy? He does have 2 Roach Warrens. Good for you. Build all the Roach Warrens. It's all good. And a nice collection of defenses back at home. So he's definitely going to transition away from those Mutalisks more towards a traditional ground army. But he really still needs to be cost effective with all those Mutalisks because he's got 6 more on the way, 20 on the ground right now. And that's 2,000 over 2,000 money. That's just quite a lot of money. And if he loses all of them, that's a massive investment in his army. And his army right now on the ground isn't nearly as powerful as what Ganjsmoker has, even with this handful, just kind of hodgepodge of Hydras and Roaches. 26 Mutas plus 24 Zerglings. If you take away the Mutas, then there's not a lot left to hold back Ganjsmoker. And so you got to be very careful with all these Infestors. Couple chain fungals on this Mutaball, and that could be all she wrote. But Ganjsmoker has definitely worked his way into a hole. He's far behind on the economy, 47 over 62 for KeRazaH. So he's got his work cut out for him. But with a fungal growth like that, that is exactly what you need. I'm going to turn on the health bars just to see how much damage was done to all those Mutalisks. They did force a lot of infested Terran from Ganjsmoker. That's a lot of energy. And so those Mutalisks will have less to fear next time they attack, but with them being so weak, I think KeRazaH is going to pull back just to kind of preserve his investment. Nope, never mind, he's going to attack again. It's all good. It's all good. That's probably what I would do too. I mean, there is a lot of those money on that Infestors, but these Mutalisks have got to do something now. The longer time goes on, the less worth they're going to be. And this is just buying time for KeRazaH to get up this, which is just an absolutely intimidating force of Roaches. They're unupgraded, 0 over 0, next to the 1-1 that Ganjsmoker has. The +2 armor is actually going to be finishing for Ganjsmoker as the +1 attack finishes for KeRazaH, so that's not bad at all. It looks like a Hive is actually on the way, the lair morphing, as the first, the main is going to get mined out. KeRazaH is just fantastically macroing off of the harassment from the Mutalisks. He's bought himself all the time in the world, 180 over 126 supply. A lot of that supply is eaten up by these roaches, which are very supply heavy, but the economy that he has is going to be just intimidating. Harvester count's a little bit low for 4 bases, but that natural, his main is going to be getting mined out shortly, so all these drones, and there's not a lot left, can transition over. Probably another round of drones are going to be underway for KeRazaH as he gets, 200 over 200. He's going to be freeing up some supply shortly. Probably going to be moving in with those Mutalisks, exchange a couple of them for a couple of drones, and maybe move out with his roaches to make way for some higher tech. Again, Ganjsmoker he's definitely behind, but he's bought himself enough time to get up a very intimidating army. With a couple of chain fungals, he could do quite a lot of damage to these roaches, but those roaches, as long as they attack in a wide enough concave, maybe with the support of the Mutalisks, support of these infestors, I don't see how they'd have much of a problem with what Ganjsmoker has out, considering the supply to gap. Yes, Hydras do a massive amount of damage, but the damage that they do is offset by the fact that they're very weak. A really nice concave for Ganjsmoker, though. Some fantastic fungal growths going down on the low ground. No fungal growths on Ganjsmoker's units just yet. It looks like the fungal growths are just now coming, but it's definitely delayed. There's some nice fungal growths. All those mutas are going down. Some like 1, 2, and 3 chain fungals on all the mutas. All of a sudden, Ganjsmoker is ahead of supply by 20. I mean, that was just a massive loss for KeRazaH. He's probably scratching his head wondering what was happening. I think he was swinging up from the left side here to attack the infestors that he knew were going to be behind the line of hydras and roaches, and that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, all those Mutalisks got bundled up into massive fungal growths, and all that KeRazaH has left now to scramble are +1 roaches against 2-1 roaches from Ganjsmoker. So he's going to have a little bit of trouble. He needs to buy a little bit of time for the +1/+2 to finish for his roaches, but that's time that Ganjsmoker's not going to give him. He's going to be pushing down into the 4th, probably going to take that out with much of a resistance from KeRazaH. No, KeRazaH's pushing in. All of his roaches get hit by a massive fungal growth, probably going to get a chain because Ganjsmoker has quite a lot of energy on all of those infestors left behind. They do fall. KeRazaH taps out. He's got another 15 roaches coming. He's pretty much dry on the bank, though, so there's not a lot he can do to stop this. I think that it is time for him to tap out. Maybe he could have done more. I think if he'd pulled his drones, a couple of his static defenses could have bought him enough time to mount another defense. He might have held him up here with all the static defenses here. Maybe it was a premature GG. Maybe it wasn't. He had definitely gone from one extreme to the other because I thought he had this in the bag. Ganjsmoker, a fantastic game. Thank you so much for posting it. If you guys have a game you want me to post, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I'm Big and Scary. Bye.